So this summer, I got to go on a mission trip to Europe with a couple members from our band, and we got to lead worship for a conference for missionaries who serve all across Africa. So this was a really unique experience because we got to minister to people who were out there ministering all across the world to unbelievers and sharing the gospel. And so a story from my trip that really impacted me is after day one, after we led worship. It was an amazing worship set. I just felt a hunger and a desire for more of God from all the people that were present. But one young man, he approached our team as soon as we got done, as soon as we walked off stage, and he just shared how much of a blessing it was. And of course we're like, oh, thank you, that's so kind and everything. And we thought that was gonna be the end of it. And he just wells up with tears in his eyes, and he just shares that where he serves, specifically in Africa, he's not able to worship freely in a corporate setting with other believers, that he meets in homes and they quietly sing, and how often he feels very lonely, very discouraged, and he's just doing all that he can do to share the love of God with people, but in such a crazy setting. And it really just struck all of us. He had all of us crying and just moved, because we take so much for granted what we have right here in the United States, the freedom that we have to worship God, the ability to gather with other believers and it not even be in question. And it blows my mind that we're just so spoiled here, that all across the world, people don't get that same opportunity. And that's something I never want to forget. I never want to take for granted here. I never want gathering on Sunday or singing together just to be another thing that we just check off. And so I think that when you go on a trip like this, you learn things like that about other cultures and how much the whole world needs God. You just begin to become more grateful for what you have here, and it just produces gratitude in your heart, and it teaches you how you can pray for people on that side of the world, and praying also for those who share the gospel, and just the way that they're having to live in such a crazy way, where they do feel discouraged or isolated or whatever else, but they just continue to just pour out the love of God despite all of those challenges. So I'm just super grateful just to learn more about another culture, and just to be struck with that reality that we're just so blessed here to get to worship the way that we do.
One of the moments that really just stuck out to me is on one of the last days of worship. We were leading worship that morning when we were singing a song called Agnus Dei, which I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with. It speaks about how holy the Lord God Almighty is. And so we were leading this song, and at the end of it, we ended the song. The whole room continued to sing the whole chorus by themselves and unprovoked. And it's just something that I'm really not used to in the States. So I sat back behind my drum set and I removed my headphones and just listened to the room sing this chorus by themselves, and just was filled with so much emotion and tears, just because in America and here, we're so blessed to have the freedom to be able to worship freely whenever we want. But a lot of these people that are coming from across Africa don't get that liberty, and to just be in a room with their fellow believers and be able to sing out loud was something that they just enjoyed so much. And so that moment for me will just stick with me for the rest of my life, just being able to enjoy that with them. So during the week, one of the sermons that the speaker was talking about was and how the missionaries, they can't give up doing what they're doing, because what they do is so important in being the hands and feet of Jesus. But he also challenged the people that were in the room that are not going back out into the field, that are going back home to the States, is to not forget about the missionaries and to partner alongside them in prayer and support, because what they're doing is so important. And that really stuck with me, just because when I'm back home, it's easy to forget about the people that are out in these parts of the world where maybe they're being persecuted or they can't worship freely and talk about Jesus out in public. And so that's something that I just really want to remember in my everyday life, is to pray for them and help support them, because they're out risking their lives and changing the world one person at a time. And so that's just something that I really want to focus on going forward.
Over the past 10 years, I felt my heart being drawn to the Muslim culture, and I'm not real sure why. I would read books. I followed Nabil Qureshi, a lot of his teachings on becoming a Christian out of the Islam faith. It was just very interesting to me, and so for about 10 years I really just would read stories and listen to testimonies about it. And I just, in my heart, kind of felt like, Lord, I feel like you're going to use this. I don't know how and I don't know why. So coming to True North and just seeing the many missions trips that they offered to the many different countries, my heart was immediately drawn to the Middle East. I signed up, went, and it's very different over there. A lot of ladies' faces are covered. A lot of different sounds come across the air for the call to worship. Not churches, but a lot of mosques, and just a totally different culture. I never felt fear, so I feel like the Spirit was with me on that. Didn't understand the language, but was able to connect with ladies that we didn't speak the same language. Learned how to use Google Translate. It's a wonderful tool. I learned that a smile is a universal language. It's interesting how two people cannot speak the same language, but yet you can connect and you can hug and you can say a little bit and love people that don't speak the same language that you do. And so I made some pretty close connections with some Muslim women, and some were believers, a lot were not. And it was just a really special time. But I didn't want to go to the Middle East and leave everything that I had experienced in the Middle East. It was my passion and desire to bring it back home. Jean got me connected with international ministry here locally, and they plugged me into some ESL classes. I didn't know what that would look like, but I connected in particular with one woman. So I have a new friend, and I didn't see her over the summer, and we reconnected when her kids went back to school, and I could tell the friendship had strengthened. I told my husband when I first started this, if I'm gonna do this, I need to be in it for the long haul. It takes a while for our belief systems to shift and for a person to be open to the truth about Jesus. I need to be patient with her and just love her. And I get a huge blessing on top of that. She cooks wonderful meals. She's a wonderful cook. She brings a lot of spices that I'm not familiar with to the table. And every time I go, the Muslim culture, they're so generous, and they want to feed you a meal, serve you tea. And we have to do that and sit and talk about family before we do any working on her English. And she's been a major blessing to me, and she's teaching me things as well.
Well, this is my first trip, mission trip, so I was a little nervous, apprehensive. A lot of folks explained what to expect when I got there, but I don't think any words or explanation could have prepared me for the things I saw, just how different things are in Guatemala versus here. You know, the tendency was to feel sorry for some of these kids in this school that they're just in these dreadful conditions living in poverty. But when I got there and met the students, I didn't see any of that. None of them felt sorry for themselves. There wasn't any pity. They had lots of energy, and I think the first day I got there, I connected with a young girl in the school named Maylee. After talking a little bit, she asked me about my life and asked her about hers and her family, and she asked if I wanted to play Uno. I said, of course. And I've been told before we got there that the kids love to play Uno. They really love it. I probably played 30 or 40 games while we were there, and lost most of them. They were pretty ruthless with their draw fours and draw twos, but it was all in good spirited fun. At the end of the week, we wrote notes of encouragement and thank you notes to some of the students. And I wrote one to Maylee. And after I saw her read it, I saw her scurry off into another room with another fella and was writing something. And at the end of the day, she handed me a note, and I've got it here. I'm gonna read it. And mind you, she's still learning English, but she had some help. She said, "Dear Jason, thank you for everything. Thank you for helping me practice English. You were a good person. I had a lot of fun with you this week. I will always pray for you. I love you so much." And it really, I got emotional reading that. Here's a girl that's living in poverty, has, you know, all kinds of challenges, and she's gonna pray for me, this guy that's living in luxury in the United States. So it just reminded me of why we pray, because we love people, not because they necessarily need it. I think there's a natural tendency for us to think we're gonna go somewhere and make some kind of huge impact through our actions, doing something really special. When I think what these kids really enjoyed and valued was spending time with them and just talking to them, get to know them, which is super easy. Anybody can do that. I think that was probably the most important thing we did while we were there, is just being present with the kids. It's something that I definitely could do a better job of as a father, so that's one of the things I brought back with me, is to try to be more intentional about being present with my children and talking with them and spending time with them. Most importantly, I guess, is pray. And you know, when Jean asked if I was interested in going on this mission trip, I said, let me think about it, let me pray about it, and I'll get back to you in a day or two. I went into my garage where I would do my best thinking and sat down to pray, and I literally didn't even get halfway through the prayer before I had this feeling. I didn't hear words, but it was a feeling that said go. It's hard to explain, but once I felt that, and it was the strongest message I think I've ever felt from God, what are you going to do except go? And I told the kids at the Light for the Future, the story that when God tells you to go, you go.